What is going on? Tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about how to price your home right. One of the most important things in selling real estate. If you don't price your home right, it's just going to sit. It's going to sit stagnant and it's not going to sell. We are two real estate agents. We work with Century 21, Alton Clark here in the state of Florida. We both have over 10 years combined of experience in real estate. We like drinking whiskey and we like talking about stuff that you need to know in real estate. My name is Jared.
And I'm Chris, and welcome with Whiskey with Nate.
Welcome. How'd you like that intro? That was pretty cool.
We've been practicing.
Yeah, we have. In my sleep and my dreams, I repeat. I have it playing in my headphones and
just nightmares. Just whiskey, Asian, whiskey.
Oh man!
Make sure you pronounce your name right,
Jared. Okay, what's the name of the show? All right, got it. Oh my goodness, dude! That 5 minutes is the 5-minute countdown timer is almost not enough because I start. I'm sending text messages. I'm trying to get the notes together. I'm trying to make sure, okay, what am I going to say? And then I look up and I'm like, oh crap, here's the intro. It's done. And then I'm like, oh, I got to key up the music over here.
The intro, everything.
Oh my God, man. But here we are talking about real estate. Man, pricing, literally, the intro is not just to get you hooked and be like, oh, really? That's really important. No. Pricing is I don't know. What do you think? Pricing is the most important thing, or it's what do you think out of the to me? There's three things, but where do you think it falls in?
I think it falls line number one. Number two is condition.
Condition.
Mm-hmm.
Condition. And what do you think's number three? Marketing? I would say marketing. Right?
Marketing. Yeah.
I would
location.
Location, yeah, that's definitely up there. I would say marketing is definitely a key factor because even at location wise, the location is not not where you need it, but if you market it properly and you really sell it, I mean, I think somebody would you could sell somebody on a location. There are certain houses or certain places where people need to be, but I think somebody who's on the fence, just like a car, it's if they're on the fence about a certain car, then that car salesman, guess what? They're going to sell you on that car.
Yep. So I have to agree to some respect, the pricing compared to the condition, compared to the location, and then the marketing all helps. But it's a balance. But if your pricing is off compared to the location, compared to the condition, if one of those three elements is off, you're not going to sell it. You're going to be chasing the market. But the biggest influence is going to be that price ultimately, because that's what buyers typically look at, is the price for the condition, for the location. So that's why, to me, price is number one. And we're going to go over that because our market is shifting. It's no longer the lava that it was, the fast
hot
burning,
lava.
Yeah, the fast and furious of 2021 to 2021 and 22. That's gone.
Oh my God,
behind us. To see a market like that again is going to be, interest rates need to be low. Interest rates need to be incredibly low, like it was. To see that kind of exodus. I think it was a perfect storm, with COVID, people were able to work from home, getting out of big cities, the states and their lockdowns, who's more free, not to get political, and then just interest rates in general allowed people to move at a very quick rate. So how do we, you used to be able to just stick a house up onto the market, you have a whole board of a price, so you just slap the home up there, whatever landed on, you can get it and probably then some. Not anymore. You really can't, unless it just depends on that that condition, that price, the condition, and location.
You're really starting to have to. You've always had to kind of narrow it down on the price, but even now more so than ever, just because buyers are being, their feet are being held to the fire with these interest rates. The interest rates are higher, and buyers are no longer, they're no longer just going to pay these outrageous prices.
Well, they can't.
They can't. They can't afford it. Before, it's a lot of buyers would say, You know what? That's fine if if it's a little bit overpriced or it seems high, but I'm getting like a 3% or a 2.75% interest mortgage rate. Yeah, that's fine. I can do that. So if your price point was a little high or a little off, then it wasn't as big of a deal. It was still you still want to be as close as you could get, but now, yeah, it's. I mean, when we're starting to see houses sit on the market for 30
More than a
days,
week.
40 days, here in
Oh, yeah.
Volusia. What's it sitting over in like Orange County, Seminole County? What's the days,
I'm
the
not gonna
average
lie,
days
I'm
on
seeing the
market?
homes and in Volusia County, in particular is like Deltona, and some parts of Sanford and some parts of Orange County where homes are sitting now over 100 days.
100
There, there,
days?
there are far and few in between, but
Yeah.
there are some that are sitting at over 100 days right now.
Dang.
And so like the average is slowly, or I should say quickly.
Mhm.
We are at the end of March already, which is crazy.
I know.
Where the
The
homes are
first
sitting
quarter.
like if a home sits more than 7 days, there's a good chance for a buyer to have some kind of negotiation.
A little bit. I've
Not
talked
much,
to.
but the longer
Yeah.
those days sit, the longer
Yeah.
it sits, the
Yeah.
more negotiations you get.
I'm working with a couple of buyers, and they're seeing homes that have been on the market for 30 days, 40 days, and they're calling me and asking, and they're like, hey, is it possible that they would be willing, do you think they would be willing to come down on their price point? They're
Yeah.
listed here, and we want to try to get them down here. And I was like, well, I said, sitting on the market for 30 or 40 days here is not that big of a deal, because that's about the time frame that people are going to be on the market. And it depends on how many showings they've had, and maybe they've had some offers already or not. But I've talked to those sellers. I talked to the listing agent. She's like, yeah, no, they're not ready to bail on their listing price yet. Or come way down. They're not ready to make that reduction, and they haven't. They've been listed. They've been holding strong, and now I don't know how many showings they're getting or whatever, but yeah, it's
So some sellers are just kind of a little stubborn. I mean, if the days on
sometimes
market, if
sometimes
the days on market, the pending, like you have to do your research, and we'll go into that. Like if your pending sales are longer than your sold sales, and
Mhm.
if the pending price per square foot is smaller or less than the sold per square foot, then you see a downward trend that you just have to make those adjustments, as a seller who's on the market, not getting
Mhm.
any activity,
Yep.
or about to go onto the market. You have to look at that, and we're going to go over that. You have to be smart in your pricing. Just because
Yeah.
your home is worth 460,000 doesn't necessarily mean someone is going to be willing to pay 460,000 in
Well,
today's
and
market.
that's the key thing right there. Your house is only going to be worth, so that if I'm going to send out my market report, and I say specifically in this report that not you, not me, and not an appraiser can accurately determine. I mean, we can kind of guesstimate. We can't like 100% say what the exact value of your home is. The price of your home is only going to be what somebody's willing to pay for it. And if a buyer's not willing to
Always.
pay, if your neighborhood was selling for 450, a week ago, but now people are coming in, they're only willing to pay 425, then guess what? Your neighborhood is now 425.
Yeah.
So we can only do our
And
best to get it as close
yeah,
as possible, but what a buyer is willing to pay for it is
totally
that's
subjective at that
yep.
point. And
And
the
that's
moment,
that's with anything.
yeah, and the
And
moment a seller comes on the market and say they're bigger than you, a little bit nicer than you, and they
mhm,
sell it for less than you're listed at,
right.
oh my God,
I
that
know.
hurts you. That just almost destroys you,
Yes.
because at that
Yeah.
point, a new precedent has been set, and as a seller, you need to be a watchful eye of that.
Mhm.
And because now that's a comp for every buyer and buyer's agent out there who's looking to compare prices. They're
Right.
going to see that, and they're going to be like, They over there sold it for 10 grand less than you. You're listed, and they're larger, and they have a
Right.
pool. Blah blah blah.
Yep.
Rattle off the list.
Yep.
And so you have to accommodate. You literally have to just buck up and be like, all right, the goal is to what? Sell the house. All right, then
Right.
you're gonna have to reduce your price.
Yeah.
It doesn't say you're obligated to. You're
Right.
obligated to do whatever you want as a seller. But
Yep.
if the goal is to sell the house and not lose more time, more money, because that's ultimately what you're doing,
Yep.
and you're not getting any further.
Yep.
All right. So
Yep.
what's to stop another house to come on the market after you
Yep.
and doing the same thing? You're literally chasing the market, making things so much worse for yourself.
Right. So the whole purpose of tonight's show is how do we actually determine what that value is? How do we come up as real estate agents? How do we come up with that that price point? And this is, if you're listening to this and you're trying, you're selling your home for sale by owner, this is the number one thing that FSBOs struggle with is pricing their home, and for good reason, because it is a tedious task. And if you don't have access to the tools that we have, it's going to be tough, because you're trying to pull recent sales off of like a property appraiser website or places like Zillow or something, where it's just not, the information isn't aggregated like you need it to be. So that's what we're going to kind of get into tonight, is how do we actually price a property? What are some of the techniques and the tools that we use, and is it subjective? Is it objective? It's some of it's a little, it's kind of a little bit of both. There is some subjectivity, there is some apples to apples comparisons that we do, but first, as I stated in the intro, we like drinking whiskey while we talk about this kind of stuff. So, my man, what you drinking tonight? What you got?
I'm drinking a gift that my clients Hugo and Cindy got for me as a closing gift. I helped them sell their house, which occurred right in the middle of Hurricane Ian, which was a whole ordeal on its own, and I ended up helping them buy very shortly after that a relatively new construction home, and it was only like a year or two old. And so as a gift, they got me Lampfric. This is a beautiful box, 10-year.
Dang.
Lefroy, actually, I think it is. It's called Lefroy.
Yeah,
I believe it's called. So it's a Scotch whiskey. And what's so cool, like in the box here, it says, "So smoky, so peaty, people may take a step back, but I respect the ones who step forward." I'm like, dope. That is cool.
I like it.
And it even comes with a couple of so here's the bottle, and here it comes with two little
look at that. And that little
drams that are engraved with Lampfric. Lefroy, excuse me. I'm pretty sure it's Lefroy.
Lefroy, probably, yeah.
Lefroy. I'll have to like Google.
Now, is it a blended, or is it a single malt, or is it
let's see. No, it's a Slay single malt Scotch whiskey, the most richly flavored of all Scotch whiskeys, established in 1815.
Nice.
I can't wait to chap into this.
Very
what about
cool. You? Well, actually, this one's been sitting on the shelf for a while. I bought it at when we did that episode at what's over in Longwood, the whiskey store, the liquor store,
Legacy Liquors.
Legacy Liquors. So I bought a bottle of this over there. He had handpicked some batches, I guess. And
which one?
The
Buffalo Trace. Yeah, Select Barrel.
So yeah, he went through and I guess bought some good ones, and I have to say, man, this is kind of one of my new go-tos. Aside from I've got a couple of go-tos, but this is definitely a good one.
You cannot go wrong with Buffalo Trace. I'm telling you, not at all. I promise you. So,
and I know we got one of our listeners that he's a bourbon guy. He's not so much for the actual whiskeys, but he likes the bourbon whiskey, I guess. Yeah. So this one's for you, man. But
I need some ice with this one.
How is it? Is it?
No, I just looked the lip of the bottle. The neck of the bottle,
yeah.
It always falls out or like runs down. I'm like, I ain't wasting 25 cents here. So
right.
I just licked it.
Heck
and
yeah.
So I licked it and I was like, oh, wow.
It's strong, huh?
Wait, hold on. Wait. Hello.
We still got to play that. I wish.
How are you?
I gotta figure out how to.
You need to put it on your little thing here. So if anybody doesn't know, there is a very famous connoisseur of whiskeys, and he does this completely obnoxious presentation, and it's absolutally hilarious.
But it works.
Total ladies man.
Yeah, it's good. If you just go and search, I'll try to post a link. But if you just go and search, like whiskey hello guy or something like that on YouTube, it'll come up, and it's freaking hilarious.
Okay, so this shit smells peaty as hell.
Cheers to getting the price right. So,
wow, that's actually really smooth. Hits you way more in the nose than the mouth, but I feel it.
Does it?
It needs to be cold. Oh, wow.
Oh, come on. Suck it up there.
Vacuum.
Hello. All right. So with pricing, like where do you normally start? So when you get a listing, I mean, obviously you're going to go look at the house. You're going to kind of evaluate, the curb appeal, all this stuff, and all, you're taking some notes and everything in your head, or, you're writing some stuff down. But when you sit down at your computer, like where do you normally start when you're like getting ready to price a home? So we do something that's called a comparative market analysis, or CMA. But like, what's your like, where do you start? What's your process?
All right. So typically I like to start with, the neighborhood. Actually, I start large and then I come in.
Okay.
If you are, say, this is where some exceptions to the rule. If you are in a gated community, you almost have to stay in your gated community unless there's not enough comps out there.
A gated community can be like, they can make a huge difference. I've seen like $50,000 to $100,000 differences from a gated community to just outside that gated community where it's just a lot cheaper.
100%. Because not all gated communities are created the same.
Correct.
Just like homes and realtors.
Correct.
But so if it's in a gated community, I like to stay in the gated community. If there's not enough comps in the community, then I go and look for other similar communities with like similar style homes, square footage in a relatively close distance. And then I try to just compare those as well. And I try to stay in a very respectful radius of roughly.
So like what, a half mile to a mile? Try not to go more than a mile.
If there's say two communities with enough comps within like the next community over, or a community across the street, depending on the street, then I'll stay there. I won't go a mile out. I'll stay really respectful about as close proximity as possible. You have to look at it that way. If it's just a house in the middle of a neighborhood, a large neighborhood that doesn't really have an HOA, then I essentially would start like a mile. And then if it crosses too much boundaries or thresholds, such as a major street, stuff like that, I'll bring it in. I'll start bringing it in, start tightening it out. And this comes with, say, time. And then I essentially go off of what appraisers typically guidelines are. They do the distance, they stay within the range, they compare apples to apples. So if you have a townhouse, then I'm going to look at similar townhouses. If it's condo, I'm looking for condos, single family, luxury. And then I look at square footage. Appraisers like to stay roughly about 250 to 300 square feet north and south of the subject house. So if your house is 2,500 square feet, I'm going to go a range of 2,250 square feet to 2,750 square feet. I'll stay within that range, roughly, like I said, 250 to 300 square feet of that subject. And
so you're not searching, like if it's a 2,000 square foot house, you're not searching for 12. You're not looking at 1,200 square foot homes. You're not looking at 3,000 square foot homes. You got to keep it relatively similar to what the prospect house is, what
Yeah.
the subject house or whatever you want to call it.
And the best thing to do is look at appraisal guidelines. Like, how do they determine their valuation? I guarantee you there's YouTube videos and documents out there that stipulate what an appraiser does. So I just try to emulate that. I'm not an appraiser. I always start off by saying I'm not an appraiser. And I just try to, I try to emulate what they do to get how they determine valuations. And I just follow that step-by-step process. Single family house.
Real quick, the difference is, between what we're doing and an appraiser. So number one, an appraiser they're certified, like they have gone, they're certified by the state or whatever. They have a special license to do this specifically, and they're working but they're providing like this long form and packet of information to like a bank and giving their best estimate of what the home is worth. Mm-hmm. As real estate agents, we're not certified to give an official appraisal, but we do. That's why we call them a comparative market analysis.
Yeah,
we're essentially
essential price. We can't declare it. Your home is worth this. It's like,
right.
No, your home is roughly around this.
Right.
Or a range. If you want to be respectful, stick at the range. Like the range of your house is 310 to 320.
Right. Whereas an appraiser, he's going to give an exact value based on comparables, based on upgrades, based on all this stuff. And as agents, we do the same thing, but it's not to the level, detailed. And it's not official.
It's not as detailed.
Yeah, it's not as detailed. Like they have a whole worksheet that they have to fill out and everything. So yeah, they have a little bit more of a process. We're looking at basically all the same things. It's just they have certain rules and things that they have to follow. Yeah. Whereas we can kind of, pull from here, pull from there and get some, come up with either a range or a price, a specific price point. Whereas the appraiser has to come up with, they're writing on your house is worth $302,000. Exactly. Yep. That's no more, no less.
Yep. And I've seen, I don't know about you, but I've seen appraisals come in at the most obscured numbers too. And it's just how the math comes out. It really does. And the comparables that they pull. And for us, it's just a generalization.
Right. Because what they're doing, like what an appraiser's doing is they're applying values to, so if your home is 2,000 square feet and then there's a home that is 2,100 square feet, well, they've got to make that adjustment to bring, so that extra 100 square feet, they have to apply a price to it. And they've got to bring that adjustment to make it more comparable with yours. So that's where you get those sort of obscure, like weird price points where it's like, okay, it's $302,050, $540 or whatever. Mm-hmm. So because you start making those little adjustments.
Yep.
And I wonder if can the appraiser, can they use any number that they want, when they're making those adjustments for, let's say, like, the subject house is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and then one of the comparables is a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. That half bath, can they just arbitrarily assign a number, or is there like a state standard or some sort of standard that says that half bathroom is worth X amount of dollars?
Yeah, there's no real set standard. It's more like just kind of a general guideline. But they can make adjustments, is what it's called.
Right.
And so I would love to get an appraiser on here. That way I can get more details about that. Because a full bathroom has more going for it than a half bathroom. Just by the fact that they have a tub or a shower or anything else that will qualify a linen room, a linen closet, walk-in closet, a steam room, shower, and a tub. Like there's so many different things that a full bathroom would have versus a half bathroom, which is generally just a vanity, a mirror, and a toilet. That's it.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a price adjustment. So if they can't exactly find price the exact same, so if we're a 4-bedroom surrounded by 3 bedrooms, there's going to be an adjustment. There's nothing they could do. They can't just make up 4 bedrooms. So they have to do a price adjustments to that.
Right.
And so like we have to kind of keep that in our mind as well. Now, I've heard bedrooms can be worth, about $10,000, and bathrooms could be worth about $5,000 adjustments. But
Correct.
depending on the
Yeah.
caliber of the bedrooms, the caliber of the bathrooms, or media rooms, bonus rooms, sunrooms, keep going. All these can play into account and a factor into the adjustments. Whereas like it just takes really experience and education on our part to really kind of narrow down the inaccurate range in terms of a value.
Yeah. And so diving into this is, you're pulling these comparables. So, like you were saying, you're pulling, if you have a 2,000 square foot house, you're doing sort of a plus minus, what'd you say, like 250 square feet, trying to get something within that same range. Trying to find something that's comparable on bedrooms and bathrooms. You might have to maybe allow for like a half bath or something and start, making those adjustments. But then other things that we look at are, curb appeal, what kind of upgrades you have, and we're trying to assign values to that. But also, aside from that, you have to look at, okay, well, how's the property and the house? How is it positioned? What's the view out of the back of this house compared to the view out of the back of that house? Am I looking at a wall on this house and then I've got a beautiful, lake view or something on this house? So, and then how do you apply a value to that? I mean, it's, and the only way is to look and see what other homes have sold for and what an appraiser has said, this house sold for, or not an appraiser, but how much it sold for. And then you take that and you sort of apply, okay, well, what kind of view did they have? This one didn't have a view. It was worth $400,000. Mine has a view. I think the view is worth 20 grand. So now I just upped it.
And what kind of view? Does it have water access? Is it just, is it a peekaboo where you can like, there's water over there?
Right.
Like, like just because you can kind of see it doesn't make it exactly a water view. And then if you're on a busy street, the first thing I'm doing is looking along that entire street for about a mile in both directions and going back a year sometimes just to see what has sold. Because speaking of sold, like, you can only find a comparable price to the homes that have sold. Just because a house in the neighborhood is on sale for $450 doesn't mean your house is worth $450. All right. You have to look. You can only account for recently sold, and appraisers typically go back 6 months. 6 months ago, the market was different from what it is now. So
100%.
You have to really narrow it down to about 3 months at this point, because homes have also been sitting a little longer. Another thing you have to factor into is when you're looking at pricing is your competition. And if your competition is active,
which would be your actives, the ones that are for sale.
Yep. And then you have to look at their days on market. Say if you're in I've recently did a comparable for a seller, and their neighborhood was beyond active. There were a lot of comps that sold, which was great, but there were 13 properties for sale in the neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
13. So the market is saturated at that point. That becomes a buyer's market at that point for anyone who's looking in there, because you have options, bro. Hey, who wants? It's like, I have money. I'm interested in one of y'all's houses. Who's going to give me the better deal?
Exactly.
Essentially, because there's 13 and probably one or two of the buyers. So, and then the next step is, all right, what about the pendings? All right, well, there's a nice little handful of pendings, or only 2 pendings. And then you have to look at the price per square foot, how long they were on the market for. So if the ones that have sold in the past 3 months were on market for an average of like 15 days, your pending was on the market for 25 days. And the price per square foot is maybe $7 cheaper than what has recently sold. And then you look at your market and there's 13 active homes that is your competition. All of them are above the price per square foot of the pending and the sold. Or let's turn this around. What if all those active ones are even less per square foot than the one that is currently pending,
right?
Which is already less than what's sold. Holy hell. That doesn't look good for a seller. Like what you thought was 450 just became 390.
Mm-hmm.
Dollars move very far depending on how large your house is.
Yes.
And so you have to really know this, and pricing is so key. And there are ways to.
How do you for you, like, how do you account? So this is one of the other, I get this question quite a bit. There's a house that's listed in, in a neighborhood, and it's sort of, it's a bigger house compared to the rest of the homes in the neighborhood. Let's say it's, bigger by 300 or 400 square feet. Mm-hmm. How do you account? So we talked about, you mentioned something about price per square foot. So price per square foot is exactly what it sounds like. It's, you're taking the price that that something is selling for, and you're dividing it by the amount of square feet. So, and then you come up with a price per square foot. That's one of the things that we kind of do to get an idea of what other homes are selling for, to kind of get it a little bit more narrowed down to see, okay, this one's listed at 130 a square foot, that one's 140, but it has some upgrades. So I can mine has, a few upgrades. And so maybe I can go 135 a square foot and multiply that times the amount of square footage. And that's the amount of square footage I'm talking about is air conditioned square foot. Yeah. So like the actual living area is what you're using, not the total square foot, like including garage.
You can only factor in under air.
Correct. So not your garage, not your porches, not anything like that. It's just livable square footage. But how do you account? And I see this quite often. How do you account for a home that's, say, 400 or 500 square foot bigger than all the other homes, but all the other homes are selling for, say, let's say $300,000, and I've got this house, and call it, they're selling for $130 a square foot. Well, if I apply that same $130 square foot to my home that's 500 square foot bigger than all the other homes, that's gonna put me at a bigger price point.
Almost an unreasonable price point.
Yeah, like an unreasonable price point. So
if the average home at that price per square foot was selling at 300 and you're coming in at like 375,
right? So how, like, is that something like you have to account for that, right?
I mean, you have to adjust it, because typically the larger the house, the smaller the price per square foot. Not all the time, but typically,
right?
So you have to kind of go down.
Yeah,
there's that adjustment.
So yeah, you're talking, that's a $65,000 difference. And if everything is in that neighborhood is selling for $300,000, and then all of a sudden you try to sell for $365 just because your house is, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger than everybody.
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to work. So that's where, you look at the price per square foot, but you can't solely go just on that, right? You have to take into account of what other homes have sold for, what they're actively listed for, what they're pending at, all these factors, and then make that adjustment. So what actually happens is your bigger house now gets listed for less per square foot, right?
Yeah. So here's a good like rule of thumb here. If there is that 500 square foot difference and you're going off that price per square foot, like, well, where is the extra space going towards? Where is it? Is it just scattered throughout, or is there like a bonus room that's, say, considered like a movie room or a game room, and it's decked out?
That could be worth
chairs. It's got surround sound. It's just like,
right.
That's a pretty penny. You can probably not get away with 60, but you could probably get away about 30, 40,
right? Yeah,
at most. So it really depends on like where that extra square foot space is being spread out. If it's just a basic 4-bedroom or three bedroom, but it has like a little bit of a loft that's not anything really special, it's just an extra flex space or something like that, then essentially you're gonna have to kind of adjust for how much more room. So if an average bedroom is around 10,000, well, there's 3 bedrooms, I might give it, say, $2,000 or $3,000 more per bedroom,
right?
15. It's like, now I'm up 15 grand more,
right?
Okay. And then you just kind of you have to use that adjustments sparingly, all right, in terms of that extra square footage, because like you said, $65,000 difference in square footage in price per square foot to 500 square feet is is really absurd unless there's something absolutely unique
amazing
about the home. Amazing, yes.
Like unique, amazing. You've got this,
yeah.
just like no other home has. But even then, you never want to be the most expensive home in the neighborhood either.
Well, I mean, some sellers want it for the fame and the glory. Like I set a new price record, because anytime someone sets a new price record in my neighborhood, I'm just like, there goes our values.
Well, yes, to that point, yes. But what I'm talking about, like, what we were just talking about, everything's selling for 300, and then all of a sudden you got this 365. I'm not going to buy that house, because I'm always going to be surrounded by the $300,000 homes. I don't know if my house is always going to be worth.
Not necessarily, because again, you set the price now. You've beaten the record. You just brought everyone else with you. The moment someone fire sells below the average,
right?
Like Jared, my wife and I are getting a divorce. I need you to fire sell my house. What did we know it? We can get 365, but it's going to take 40 days. I don't have that kind of time. We don't have that kind of time.
Right.
It's ugly. We need to get out. I need you to sell it at, what did I say, 360? Like I need you to sell it at 300,
right?
Or like 299.9. Can we do that? Right. And like, boom, you just brought everyone down a little bit.
Right.
So that hurts.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that sucks, because you don't always know. Usually. So, and I've seen these neighborhoods before. I've seen these homes where you see it was some sort of fire sale, and sometimes you can sort of offset that when you're
I call it an anomaly.
Yep. And you know how you have your graph, and you're plotting your price points, and all of a sudden you've got this one that's like way down here on the chart. Well, what do they do? Like when you're doing like science experiments, what do you do with those? With those, you throw them out because they don't fit the pattern. They don't fit the mold. And so there are times where you can throw those out. So this is another one of the takeaways to pricing your home, is just because something did go under a fire sale, maybe it's a divorce, or somebody passed away, and then somebody inherited the house and they just want to offload the burden or the debt, or whatever the case may be. You can see those anomalies, and it's okay to toss those out. We still look at them. We still assess, okay, well, what do we think happened? Okay, we kind of look at, sometimes I'll go back and look at, title transfers, or, deed transfers, or whatever, and just kind of see, okay, yeah, it looks like they passed it on to somebody else, or whatever the case is. And we take that into consideration. So again, going back to, this is why people, as for sale by owners, and I go back to that, because this is why this is the number one issue that they have. This is the hardest thing, the most thing that they complain about, is setting the price, because it is so tough, and you can't just find another house and be like, all right, yeah, that sounds about good. I'll just do that. I'll just throw it up there for that much, because if you don't put some due diligence in there, I'm telling you, you're going to sit stagnant. You're going to sell it you're going to either sell it too cheap because you didn't do your work, or you're going to list it too high and you're going to sit on the market and go stagnant. Yeah. So it's tough. But so when I do a CMA, I kind of have a similar process. I pull up the MLS and I do searches and start looking at, different comparables, within a half mile or a mile, or, within, I used to, like during COVID, I would only go back like 90 days, just because there was so many, the
increases were exponential.
Correct. So if you went outside of that 90 days, like home prices were increasing so rapidly that if you went outside of 90 days, then your price point is, it could be skewed at that point. Now we can start going back a little bit further, because prices they're not increasing as rapidly as they were in the past. Yeah. Like the past couple of years. So, but like I said, I kind of do the same thing. I go back, 90 days. If I can't find anything, I go back, maybe 6 months or something, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, and just start breaking it out from there. Or maybe I have to expand the neighborhood and and start looking at, okay, how does the subject house compare to the other ones, as far, and then looking at, even getting detailed and looking at, upgrades. Do you have granite, or do you have wood countertops with laminate, or do you have, nice tile floors or LVT, or what are some of the finishes around the house, like, so those are all things that have to go into consideration of that's going to boost your value. Do you have a pool? That's going to be, how do you price a pool when you're doing your analysis there?
Pools, there's different levels of pools. But I typically
just like, let's say you're just your standard, like it's like a semi oval, or square, like rectangle, or whatever. It's not like your oasis that's in the backyard. It's just, it's a regular pool. You can get wet, you can get some sun, and have a barbecue.
There are price adjustments that kind of like not price adjustments, or like kind of set prices per tiered price point. So if you have a $500,000 house roughly, and there's a pool there, chances are it's probably about $25,000 or more.
Okay.
Depending on the luxuriousness of that pool, and if it's a screened enclosure. So if I have a luxurious pool and like a mediocre house with a screen enclosure, rock waterfall with a sauna or a spa and stuff like that, or jacuzzi tub, excuse me, I'm gonna try to find homes with that and see, and try to what kind of a scale can we give this with this kind of a pool. And just so you know, people can put $100,000 pools in, doesn't mean that their house is now worth $100,000 more. It just does not work that way.
No,
it really.
You're never going to get 100% back if you install a pool. If you have a pool built after you buy a house, and you spend, what is a pool now? Minimum $50,000 to $75,000.
$50,000 to $75,000 is what you're looking at for a decent pool. You're looking at that minimum. So, like, if you bought a house and you put that much money in it, you probably increased your value by about $25,000.
Yeah, you're not getting 100% back on building a pool. Never. There was a time, a while ago, when pools used to be like 20, maybe 20, 30 grand to install, like 40 grand on the expensive side to get something nice.
And they didn't give you a lot of value at that time either.
Right. But now it's just, man, it costs so much, and you're not going to get. So if you put a pool in your house thinking that you're going to get 100% back, it's not going to happen. I mean, pool is a luxury, and a pool is not something that everybody wants. Pool,
that's true too. A pool is still considered a luxury. Even though they're popping up everywhere. Here's another thing to consider though. The newness of it. So if you're in a, say, 1970s neighborhood, everyone's got a block home. Very few communities have pool. Very few homes, only just a small handful, have a pool that was built in probably the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. And then you can go get a pool installed, and you spend some good coin on it, like 50 grand, because you have the newest pool in the neighborhood. In comparison to like all the other pools, you might get away with an extra $5 grand, like than what could be called for. So if it's the pool will give you about $25,000 bump up, but with being that it's new, you might get away with like $10,000 more than that, just because like we just installed this and we're selling. So it really kind of goes into play of like when it was done too, and I guess other features that go along with it.
Right.
So
there's go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, just kind of following suit here. When determining valuation, you have to really take your time.
Yes.
And talk to an agent, not just one agent, because we all have different I say we all have similar methods to get to the range.
Correct.
But everyone's gonna have a different opinion. Just like appraisers, they have different opinions on price. So if you want to get, you can pay for an appraisal, which will give you a true determined value. I wouldn't necessarily recommend a desktop appraisal or a drive-by appraisal. If you want to determine your value, actually have someone come through the house and go through it all. Give them
cost
a list
you what,
of
like
upgrades.
$300-400?
About $400 or $500, maybe a little less, depending on that. If you can provide them a list of everything you've done. I got new appliances. My roof is 2 years old. My AC is 3 years old. Plumbing is newer. Like, give them this list and you will be able to provide. They'll be able to factor in. You're giving them ammo to, sorry, it's all shaky. I got the legs on my desk is all fucked up.
No.
You're giving them ammo to increase the value, right? And so you can do that, or you can do a broker priced opinion, which is also known as a BPO. So you can pay for that. And then you can also just talk to realtors, talk to agents, talk to your friends, call us and be like, hey, listen, here's my address. Please do a CMA. The first thing out of our mouth is really be like, I have to see it.
Right.
Let us see it. Let us walk it. Let us walk the neighborhood and get acquainted with your property. Don't not say, well, just give me a price. Like you're asking for bullshit.
Yeah.
You are literally asking for bullshit. Like, here's this. Go ahead.
Here's what's going to happen if you call up an agent and you ask you like, hey, can you here's my address. Can you give me a price on what you think it would sell for? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume that you don't have, because you haven't sent me any pictures. I don't know what your house looks like. I don't know what the curb appeal is. I don't know what kind of view you have. So I'm going to give you a range, and that range is going to be, it could be like $50,000 spread. It could be $100,000 spread, depending on your neighborhood. Yeah. And so I'm going to be like, well, you could list it anywhere from $300,000 to $400,000, and you're going to call me back and be like, well, what am I supposed to do with that? And be like, well, what am I supposed to do with an address? I can't just, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not a magician. I can't just say, oh, this address, oh yes, it's beautiful, and I have, okay, there it is. Oh, 352. There you go. No, it doesn't work.
It doesn't
that way.
work like that.
I have to see it. Yeah. I mean, I can pull up Google Photos of it and stuff, but that only gives me so much.
And it's not always up to date.
And it's not always up to date. But I can see like, maybe you're on a lake. Cool. I still don't know what kind of upgrades you have on the house. I still don't know if you have like granite countertops or quartz or laminate, or what kind of flooring you have, and what's the overall shape of the house. How's the landscaping outside? Like, all these things play into factor. And to be honest, some of it, and this is why I'm glad you said it. Every agent we all have a method to get to a price point. Sometimes it's the price point may be a little different, because sometimes some of that comes from sort of your gut feeling, because you're so familiar with the neighborhood, and you're going through all the homes that you've seen and you've had experience with, and you're like, okay, like, yeah, I bet this house is probably worth 400. And then you kind of have, like, I kind of do that, like, when I see a house, I'm like, yeah, this is probably like a $400,000 house.
Yeah, I listen to my gut too. I do as well. Because I saw one home in Mount Dora, and the thing is, like, I'm looking at the price. I'm like, okay, there's this, but I know there's some stucco issues. Right in the front, right there, staring you in the face when you walk up. You're like, well, that hurts, because like that value is just like, okay, it says this, but now I know it's down here. Right. Because like, not just from like how much it costs, because the unfortunate thing is that when a buyer walks in and you're at a price point, everything that they see there, it's a checklist of a deduction. It's like, oh, correct, floors need to be changed from carpet to hardwood, $10,000. Right. And they're literally that's as big as a number as it is. And when that shit starts adding up, they're like, nope, they need to be around like 30 grand less than where they're at. Correct. And he's like, even though your house is worth that, where it's at, they're just nitpicking it. They're doing a deduction
Yep.
list all the way through.
Yeah. So on top of this whole method that we go through that we talked about, where we compare, we look at comparables within like a half mile or a mile. We're looking at the same house or the same, similar square footage and bedrooms and whether or not it has a pool and all these like finite things that can be compared apples to apples. Like, okay, this home has a pool, your home has a pool. Okay, apples to apples. But then at the end, there's still that little bit of a gut feeling. And the gut feeling comes from experience. The gut feeling comes from the fact that, you've seen so many houses and you've sold houses and you've helped people buy houses and you've been paying attention to what the market is doing and how these homes should be priced. There's that little bit of a gut feeling that says, yeah, I bet I can get, this amount of money out of this house.
Yeah.
So, and again, that's why it's so hard for, somebody who doesn't have that experience to price a home, even if they pull all this information, it's still going to be hard because you have to have that experience to be able to know, yep, that's going to work. That price point is going to work. It sounds right. It feels right. It looks right. It matches what everything else is doing in the neighborhood. And it's, as much as I hate to use like gut feelings and stuff, it's just,
you're saying it a lot too.
Yeah, I know. But that's just it's part of it. It's part of it.
Have you ever listed one more thing on gut feeling? Have you listed a house with a gut feeling and be like, I do not recommend this price point, but they want to do it, and then ultimately someone comes in 3 days later with a full price offer, and you're like, what? It's happened to me. It's happened to me a few times. So I'll listen to what you say, but I don't necessarily recommend it. The evidence say otherwise. But I'll list it under under these pretenses, and then just go from there. And I'm like, good call. I'll tell the seller, I'm like, great call.
Okay. Good.
It's like not the move I would have done, but I'm glad you stuck with your guns, and I'm glad we had the agreement to continue moving forward.
Same thing.
I'm not afraid to admit that I was wrong in some things, because like my gut says like this is not the right move. It's just not.
It didn't happen to like it happened, but it didn't happen in like a few days. It still took. Oh man, how long were we on the market for? Like 40 days, 50 days, and this is back in the middle of the pandemic and all that. And I'm just like, man, nobody's gonna. But he was bound and determined to wait on that one buyer that was gonna pay that price point, and by God, we found him. And he and I ended up, facilitating the deal and everything. And, that buyer, they found me, they saw the listing and then they called me directly and I was able to make it happen. But yeah, I told him, I was like, man, you're here, you're up here. You need to be, 30, 40.
Oh, looks like we lost our host, and it's just me right now. Oh, wow. I wonder what he hit. So that concludes today's episode.
I don't know what happened there. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't think I clicked on anything. I'm back, right?
Definitely gotta go viral.
I'm back, right? My God.
Oh, that's so great.
Whatever.
Well, congratulations on that sale. I think we should call it here at that point.
Yeah.
So I needless to say, not to be redundant, it's really important to pay attention to your price. And if you're not confident in your price, hire an expert, an appraiser, get a broker price opinion, or hire a realtor, or just not even hire a realtor. Talk to a realtor, invite them. Do not be afraid to let them walk through the house and give you an honest opinion.
Yeah.
No one's saying you have to sign anything in order to get this information.
Yeah.
The moment they start saying, "Oh, you have to sign an agreement for me to get that," like, not the person you want. Not the person you want.
I'm happy. If it's with, if it's close enough by. I mean, I'm happy to go walk through your house and come up with, try to help you come up with something. Because my hope is, if you're trying to do this on your own, more power to you. We can help you get through it on your own. We can give you some information and some guidelines and some guidance on how to do it. And to be honest, my hope is not that you fail, but that you realize that, man, this is really hard, and then I'm here, like I've been helping you the whole time, and that you're going to turn to me and say, hey man, will you just take care of everything?
Take the reins. Just take the
reins.
Like,
and that's what it's not that I'm trying to sell you on something. It's just, that's why
we're advisors, man. We are advisors. We are guidance.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. Yeah. Plain and simple. And there's cheers to that.
Yeah. You got to, man. It's
hold up your glass, sir. Don't leave me hanging.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Cheers.
You need more, sir.
I know.
Everyone, thanks for joining us tonight on Whiskey with an Agent. We will see you next month for our next live episode. But throughout each week, we will be releasing weekly episodes.
Yeah, we're trying to release weekly episodes. I've been a little behind on getting those.
Don't worry about that, man. But we will get them out.
But when they do come out, you can watch the video on Facebook and YouTube. But if you want to hear audio, if you don't have the time to watch video and watch us talk, you can listen to it on your podcast while you're driving a car, in your headphones or whatever. We're on Spotify. Spotify is probably the most or the easiest place to find us. You can just search Whiskey with an Agent, or Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or your favorite Anchor. Which is owned now by Spotify. Spotify has their own podcast, like standalone podcast app. They have the music app. They have the podcast app. So, dope. But then, you can just search on, if you have an app on your phone. Because I don't use like Apple and Google Podcasts. I just have like a standalone app. I just search the podcast, so you can search Whiskey with an Agent, and then it'll pop up. You click subscribe to the feed, and then every time we post a new episode, it shows up. So, long story short, you can listen to us on the audio-only version. I know that was a lot to say.
There's a lot to say.
I feel like, I don't know.
Drink some more.
Well, there's still 40 seconds left on the music, so I could have gone on and on and on.
No,
but
don't do that.
No, don't do that. We'll call it.
Save our patron.
Hey,
everyone,
thanks everybody.
Night. Thank you for joining.
Yes. Cheers. Price it right. Don't mess it up. You're gonna sit on the market.
Right.
Price is right.
Like Bob Barker always does.
That's right. Price it right. Can we say that? We're gonna get sued.
No. It's something about spay, neuter your pets and animals.
Yeah, that's something like that. Yeah. Get out of here.
I'll keep the population happy.
Yeah, exactly.